Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we are back with the second of these brand new Furyu Jurassic World Legacy Selection figures, as this time we've got Blue, as it says there on the box, but Velociraptor Blue to be specific. You can see the packaging is pretty much the same as it was the first time around, except obviously it says Blue now, and we can see a little kind of sneak peek of Velociraptor Blue in there. Just a little hard to really see her with the glare from the plastic and everything. But then as you move over here to the side, first of all, you've got a nice shot of the figure right there. When you look at the back's actually a little beat up. Something happened. I guess it got a little crushed in transit right there. And then pretty much the same thing we had seen on the other box there on the other side. So nothing super exciting as far as the box goes, but let's pop this open and check it out. So here is our Velociraptor Blue, and I must say, honestly, I'm quite impressed. I think this figure actually is, just like with the T-Rex, a whole lot nicer than I was anticipating. And in general, it seems as though Furyu has really quite improved since the release of their first few figures. I was really quite wondering how this one was going to stand. It doesn't look like it's going to be quite as stable as the T-Rex was. Another of the instances where clearly they've ditched those bases that we had underneath previously, and now they're basically just freestanding here on their own. But it does actually look quite nice, so let's jump to a closer look and check it out from there. So starting up here at the head sculpt of Velociraptor Blue, you can see the sculpt itself is really nicely done. Definitely, I would say, spot on to what Velociraptor Blue looks like, and that's 2 for 2 when it comes to these new figures. I feel like they really have done a great job as far as capturing screen accuracy with these newer figures, even better than the older ones. Like, I felt like there was just something a little off about the first T-Rex and Dilophosaurus, but these new figures, I don't know if they've changed sculptors or if they really just started paying attention, but I feel like they are so much nicer. As you can see, Velociraptor Blue is sculpted with her mouth in an open position, looking quite ferocious. We've got some pretty darn nice looking scale, detail, and skin texture here in the face for Blue. You can see we've got a grayish tone, but there's also a light dry brushing that they've applied, kind of like a light gray dry brushing, which does help to highlight the skin texture very nicely. There are actually some like greenish tints to the snout, which is intriguing, something I wasn't really expecting, but does actually look kind of nice on the figure. We've got a gold eye with a black slit-like pupil. Kind of surprised to see gold actually looking so nice on the figure, but somehow it does. I remember when Rebor used to release their figures with gold eyes. I was never a fan of it, but it actually looks a lot nicer on this figure than I was expecting it to. But you can see the blue stripe also leads up from the neck and then kind of comes up and over the eye and under the eye. It's not absolutely picture perfect to the way it should look, but at least they have it going, around the eye on the correct side. The mouth, again, is sculpted in an open position, as I already mentioned. We can see the tongue sculpted out in there, everything painted with a pinkish tone, and the detail looks pretty good. On top of the pinkish tone, looks like we have a purple wash, if I can get a good spot with me holding it still, a purple wash for the inside of the mouth as well, and again the nice gloss coat, which gives everything a nice saliva-like look, which is really nice. The tongue looks like it's an ever so slightly different shade of pink compared to like the skin stretching here on the side of the mouth. The teeth are all sculpted pretty nicely, but as you can see, the paintwork's a little sloppy. Like, you can see how the paint's kind of sticking to each of the teeth, not really looking so good. So, I kind of like the repainter in me wants to touch those up, but at the same time, I love leaving my figures original, if possible. You can see the same thing over here, but it looks actually a little better over here. If you were repainting this, I feel like the teeth would look a whole lot nicer with a better paint job, but it's not too bad. We can see the nostrils sculpted out up there on the tip of the snout. As you lead back into the neck, again, we continue to have the grayish tones with the dry brushing, highlighting the scale detail. The scale detail actually looks quite nice, I would say. The blue stripe, not so much. It doesn't look great, but it doesn't look terrible. It looks a little generic as far as the way it's applied, but I've absolutely seen much worse. One thing that is a plus is, as you can see, they've captured those osteoderms that you see moving back into the neck of Velociraptor Velociraptor Blue. They've captured that very nicely on this version. As we continue to move down, we do have very obvious seams like we usually do for the Furyu figures. You can see the seam there where the lower jaw connects, as well as the seam here where the neck connects, and the seam where the arm connects are all very, very obvious. They don't really try to hide those, it seems. And no, that was not meant to be a pun. But as we move down into the arm, you can see the arm looks pretty good as far as the texturing goes. You can also see the muscle definition, and we continue to have that dry brushing moving down. We actually have some bluish tones as you move out into the hands, which you do see slight bluish tints to Velociraptor Blue through her body, which is pretty cool to see that actually portrayed here on this figure. You can see the nails are sculpted nicely, have some decent detail to them, and are painted with a light tannish tone, and they have a nice shine to them as well, which is a plus. You don't see a whole lot of the stomach on this side because the leg is leaning so far forward as the raptor is either running along or kind of creeping along. Kind of looks to be running to me. But as you move back, you can see the hip bone. You continue to have the blue stripe moving through. The muscle definition is definitely nicely displayed here in the thigh. You can see the knee. The seam in the leg isn't nearly as obvious as it was with the T-Rex. As you move down, you can see the calf muscle very nicely. And again, that dry brushing is continuing to help highlight all of the detail on this one. Moving down, you've got some blues moving through the scoots of the toes. You again have the nails sculpted pretty decently and painted with that light tone. I feel like the paintwork of the scoots and everything could have been a little bit better. It's just kind of a little lackluster. There's not much of a dry brushing over the scoots. On the closer toe there is, but on the further toe not so much. It looks okay, I guess. But as you move up, you can see some more skin detail right here. You also see the seam where the tail was connected, because just like with the T-Rex, the tail comes disconnected on the figure. We continue to have the blue stripe moving out through the course of the tail, as well as the dry brushing leading out here, again helping to highlight the very nice scale detail that we have on the figure. And as we move out, you see the blue stripes start to break up, just like you would expect to see on Velociraptor Blue, and you also see a nice curve to the tail as you lead out. If you get a nice further away look at the raptor, you can see how nice it looks overall. We do have a light tone here for the underside as well, which is pretty cool, kind of like a mixture of a blue and green almost here for the underside. You can even see the undersides of the hands are actually really nicely sculpted. The sculpts of these new figures are far and away the best that Furyu has to offer so far. Again, you can see that this side features that golden eye. You can also see that the blue stripe does stop correctly before the eye as you lead down. For the most part, the head and neck is going to be the same because the raptor is pretty much straightforward. The only difference would be the coloration and the way it appears on this side. But as you lead down, you can see the arms are in different positions compared to the other side. This arm's held back a little bit further. The seam is still equally as obvious though, but you can see the bluish tones again in the fingers and hands and everything. But as you lead back into the stomach, you do see a little bit more of the actual stomach detail over here, more of the dry brushing. And again, you can see the skin kind of stretching off of the stomach as the leg is stretching back, stretching that skin. Moving up, you've got the hip bone, the blue stripe continuing to move along. We can see the spinal column here. You can also see some light greenish tints here moving along the back of the neck as well. You can even see that actually in the tail, some more of those greenish tints. But as you move down through the thigh, you can see the muscle definition again, the dry brushing, a little bit of extra airbrushing with some darker grays. There is definitely variation to the grays moving through the figure. This is the best seam I've seen so far as these figures go. That one's very, I don't know if I'd say well hidden, but not that noticeable. You can see the calf again, and as we lead down, you've got more of that greenish tint moving actually along the back of the leg and then down into the back of the foot, but then blues moving along the front of the foot down through the scoots. The scoots are definitely better as far as the way they're highlighted with the dry brushing over here. We can see the dew claws as well, which I don't think I pointed out before. And then you again lead up into the tail. As you lead out, you've got that really nice curve. So just like with the T-Rex, this Velociraptor Blue is way nicer than I was expecting. I will say the longer this raptor is out of the packaging, the less stable it's becoming. I actually had a little bit of a hard time getting it to stand, so I already missed the bases that they had with the previous releases. The T-Rex seems very stable, but the raptor not as much. As far as the size goes, lengthwise though, about 12 inches or about 30.5 centimeters, and then height, the highest point is definitely the tail, just shy of 5¼ inches or approaching 13.5 centimeters, but not quite there. and then to the top of the head just shy of 4 inches or 10 centimeters. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, Robert Muldoon, and the Collect A human being next to our Velociraptor Blue, and you can see she does have a pretty nice size. I would say absolutely one of the most sizable Velociraptor Blues that I have, outside of like the Amber Collection version, as well as, of course, the Super Colossal version. Most Velociraptor Blues, though, especially when it comes to like the Mattel stuff, are a little bit smaller. Even though it's not Velociraptor Blue, we do have a Mattel Velociraptor here to compare with the Furyu version, and as you can see, it is a little bit smaller. As you can see, we also have the Hammond Collection version of Velociraptor Blue, which as well, again, is quite a bit smaller, and definitely not quite the size of this Furyu version. We've also got an Amber Collection Velociraptor, which as you can see, this one isn't blue, but it's still the same sculpt, as they were all pretty much the same sculpt. And obviously you can see that the Amber Collection Raptors were a bit larger. So this brand new Furyu Jurassic World Velociraptor Blue is again another figure that is actually way nicer than I was expecting it to be. Obviously it's not perfect as far as the paint apps go, and again, you'll never really get that, I would say, when it comes to something like this. If you want a perfect paint job for a Velociraptor Blue, you're probably going to have to reach out to somebody to custom paint it for you, because Velociraptor Blue's paint job is actually kind of intricate. So when it comes to a mass-produced figure, this is probably one of the best attempts I've seen so far. Even if there's not a whole lot to it, at least there was an attempt to kind of give it a little variation of color, add a little extra to it. They did a good job of applying dry brushing through the majority of the figure. The blue stripe is a little ugly. It's not really that great, but I've seen far worse. The blue stripe and the way it kind of runs up to the eye and stops on one side is correct. Not perfect on the opposing side where it does go under and over the eye, but still, again, they've got like the basic gist of it. The colors are slightly off as far as like the eye. You know, blue doesn't have golden eyes, but it still looks good on the figure. So the paint apps, which is probably, I would say, my primary concern when it comes to the Furyu figures, are better on this than I was expecting for sure. And again, the fact that they've added in slight variations of color, especially like slight greenish tints and bluish tints and stuff in different areas, is a really nice touch. The sculpt is really well done. It's probably one of the best looking Velociraptor Blues that I have seen so far. They really captured, in my opinion, as far as I can tell, the screen accuracy of Blue honestly perfectly. They've captured everything that I can think of as far as she goes. So absolutely one of the best Velociraptor Blue sculpts on the market. The pose is also nicely done, kind of shows that nice ferocious side of Blue, which is also a huge plus. So if you are interested in this, I got mine through my good buddy Dino Mike Mac, and I don't know for sure how readily available these are. I of course do want to give a thank you and a shout out to Dino Mike Mac for helping me get a hold of this and the T-Rex, but I will try to find a link to include in the description. If I cannot, hopefully this figure will become a little more readily available as time goes on, as it's out a little bit longer and you guys will have a chance to get it and add it to your collection. So again, in the comment section, let me know what you guys think of this, and of course like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.